So good afternoon, everyone. This is Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council and 40 by 80. Very thrilled to have our guests on today. This is definitely going to be action-packed, and I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to talk with them. Just before I introduce the leaders at Black Tech Nation Ventures, let me just make sure to give appreciation to all those that help us do this work. And of course, that's Huntington Bank. I want to thank them for every time that they support us in every experiment. And here we are a year later, excuse me, and they are still supporting us and making sure that we are reaching the community far and wide. They are very active in the small business administration. They're one of the top that have been involved in all of the PPP activities. And they also offer a lot of services. But if you don't know them, get to know them because they are really civic minded and really care about the growth of the region. I also want to mention 40 by 80. 40 by 80 is a longitude and latitude of Pittsburgh. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of the Pittsburgh Tech Council. And that is where we focus on things like entrepreneurship, and soon, very soon, you're going to hear about apprenticeship program that we're running and expanding to make sure that we are reaching all kinds of people so that they can be part of the new knowledge in, technologies companies. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about that, and stay tuned, but you can go to our site as well. So we've muted your microphones. Jonathan Kirsting is here with us. He is Vice President of all things media and marketing for the Tech Council. And he's pretty well known for all of his storytelling and keeping his ear to the ground. So he is going to make sure that if people have questions, they can, ask them. I have a list of questions, of course, and I'm pretty thrilled to bring on our guests. I also want to tell you that the chat is not to be used for you selling your wares. That's not what this is about today. It is only about our guests. So focus on our guests. That's what it's about. And hopefully we'll have a lively conversation. So let's bring the team to the forefront from Black Tech Nation Ventures. They include Kelauni Jasmyn. Hi, Kelauni. David Motley and Sean Sebastian. This is a great trio here. And I can't wait to hear from each and every one of you about what you're up to. So why and what? First of all, I want to make sure it's everyone feeling good, everyone okay, being okay during COVID. Thumbs up.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
It's been a year, hasn't it, for everybody, right? But yeah, it's
right?
good right now. Yeah.
Okay, great. David, you safe and sound? Okay. So let's talk about the why and what is Black Tech Nation, Black Tech Nation Ventures. So who wants to take that first? Kelauni, do you want to start?
Probably.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'll take a first stab at it. So Black Tech Nation started a few years ago when shortly after I moved here to Pittsburgh. And mainly it was honestly supposed to be like a coffee shop meetup for Black techies to just nerd out together, to be honest. I was a new techie, had gone through Academy Pittsburgh software boot camp. And, I just didn't see people who looked like me. And I knew that the new economic driving force for Pittsburgh, in this new renaissance of the city was technology. And I see all these headquarters here of different technology companies. And I'm like, why don't I see people who look like me? And really, it just made a lot of noise to all the right people. Back in 2017, it was supposed to be Black Tech Nation, Black Tech Pittsburgh. That's what it started out. But then I started having people from all over the country, now even the world at this point, who were like, oh my gosh, we need this. Like this, even though it's digital, it feels like a space where I can, relate to people who look like me and nerd out with them and have, just camaraderie in the tech space amongst other Black folks. And it just turned into an amazing organization that's been supported by pretty much every major foundation here in Pittsburgh. We've got partnerships with Google and talking to some other huge companies at this point to really expand what we're trying to do, which is fill in the gaps in all of the pipeline areas for the Black community as far as entryway into the tech industry. And I will kind of just stop there and kind of let Sean, I think, continue with how Black Tech Nation Ventures was started. But I will say an important part of that is that Sean was my very first donor. into Black Tech Nation 3.0.
Ah,
Yeah, and has definitely mentored me since in both business and just kind of I'm a big dreamer, and so he's kind of like reeled me in at times, and so it's just been a great relationship having him as a mentor and my first VC I've ever met. And so yeah, I'll let him kind of continue how Black Tech Nation Ventures.
that's great. That's great. And so you're still based in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I'm still here in Pittsburgh. Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks. Sean, so you want to pick it up from where Kelauni left off?
Yeah, so the evolution from there is Kelauni first popped her head up and started making noise, as she said, back in 17. Why aren't there more people who look like me? And I said, come see me, this is interesting. We've long had within Birchmere an informal Rooney Rule sort of attitude. Anytime we've had a major opening in senior ranks of our companies, we try to find people of diversity and color as candidates with mixed success. But it's definitely something that resonated with me, her message and what we were trying to do. And over the subsequent couple of years, to Kelauni's point, she would come to me with a big idea every time we connected. And I kept saying, stay in your lane, let's execute, let's prove what you can do, move on to the next thing in an orderly fashion. And then 2020 happened, right? Black Lives Matter, George Floyd. And I called her and I said, I think the world's come to you in a way. And this is in fact the right time to collaborate on raising a fund. And that's how the conversation started. We said, she's got this incredible network and resource and talent pool on the Black Tech Nation side. I've got the Birchmere investment platform. Right. Is there a common good? Is there a 1 and 1 is 3 sort of intersect here? And then I called David and I said, David, have I got an idea for you? David? Okay,
David, let's pass the baton. He opened up the door for you.
Thank you. And Audrey, I'll start by saying great show that the Pittsburgh Tech Council has been putting on for the last year. Congratulations. I know that's no small undertaking. Sean is absolutely right. This inbound call came from my multi-decade friend, Sean, saying, David, not going to give you a lot of background, but I want you to call this young lady named Kelauni. And once you talk to her, I want you to call me back. So I gave Kelauni a call and I met this bundle of energy that you've just seen and an incredible track record of execution against this vision that she started with 3-4 years ago. Because a lot of people have those ideas, but very few people achieve the kind of traction that Kelauni has with first with Black Tech Nation, the community side, and being able to connect that to Carnegie Mellon and Google and other leaders in the tech corporate community, and then building out not just a Pittsburgh base, but a national base. And then build on top of that, this idea that you could take that, that platform, that foundation, and bolt onto it a venture fund. So I called Sean back and said, wow, Sean, I think this is the real deal. I really think that there's the opportunity to do something really special. Thank you for inviting me into the tent.
So here we have the three of you, a trio. I wasn't going to say musketeers, but definitely the three of you. And, you know, I think it's great to hear how you all met and how that just got knitted together. But let's imagine like a year from now. Let's just take ourselves like a year from now. What do you imagine Black Tech Nation Ventures? And I'll pick on you, Kelauni, because you're the big dreamer. Yeah. So what do you think a year from now we're going to be saying and doing?
Yeah, next spring, 2022. Well, first of all, I hope we are, if not all vaccinated, we are all out and about. We can actually meet with people and talk to companies and potential, investments, excuse me. So a year from now, I would hope that we are well underway of like investing in promising companies. I personally can't wait for that part. That's where I feel like I'm going to have the most excitement and impact, just simply because of the network I've built through Black Tech Nation, myself being an entrepreneur, growing this organization from a napkin to now national, and just getting to, again, if you go to my original mission for starting Black Tech Nation, it's like watching it all just kind of come to be, where I can work with actual Black techies, Black tech unicorns and entrepreneurs to grow their businesses, and know that it's through our fund that we can help them see a dream that, you know, it's not normal for our community. It just isn't. And it's unfortunate, but I'm just happy to have the platform to make it a normal thing now. And yeah, so investing, I would say definitely having a staff. That's something we're going to be thinking about very soon here, particularly because we want, Sean and David told me when we first got together that their main mandate was honestly mentoring me and other people like me to become the next the next group of VCs in the venture space, right? That, aren't the traditional, no offense, Sean, but that look like Sean, we want, we want more diversity and they want that too. And so I hope to have a staff of really diverse leaders, women, minority, brown, Native American, whomever wants to be a part of it and it's smart and ready to take this on. I just hope those are the two things I really hope to see in the next year.
No, that's great. Either of you want to jump in on that?
I would love to jump into the vision for what will be true 12 months from now. One is that we initially targeted $50 million as our raise.
Right.
Reception that we've had during our quiet period, and we just went public with the article that came out in the Pittsburgh Business Times about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But the reception that we received during our quiet period was so strong that I think we have a very good shot of raising a much larger fund, perhaps 2x our initial aspiration. So what I hope will be true next year is we're talking about a $100 million fund, not a $50 million fund. Secondly, we know that the institutional dollars are going to dwarf the individual dollars that come into our fund. But another aspiration of ours is that we would have as many Black and diverse LPs invested in our fund as we do majority and institutional investors. And we're well on our way towards that now. We're tracking almost even in terms of the count, the number of minority LPs that are investing as compared to the majority of institutional LPs. I think the other thing that we absolutely have a potential of creating here is that there is the connection of Black Tech Nation to both LPs and deals outside of Pittsburgh. But I really think another possibility for Black Tech Nation Ventures is to connect those external companies and opportunities and networks to Pittsburgh and have this community of Black and diverse founders and other sources and resources thinking of Pittsburgh in a very different way than they thought about Pittsburgh before. What was so apparent to Kelauni when she looked around and saw CMU, Pitt, all the tech presences here, and said, wow, what a resource. I think that wow is still out there for the rest of the country to understand what a big opportunity there is to connect and leverage all the things that are resident here in Pittsburgh.
Sean, you want to pipe in on that?
Not a lot to add to that. I think that the vision is there, the opportunity is there. I think this is sort of more of what I've personally been doing for many years now, but with more focus and intent. And candidly, now with an unfair advantage in the market of being able to access the Black Tech Nation platform of these hundreds and hundreds of Black and other diverse entrepreneurs that are capital sources, idea sources, talent sources, deal flow sources that we're going to have exclusive access to. So we're really excited about what we're going to build.
I think it's great. And one thing I just want to make sure that this fund is not only focused on Pittsburgh. Is that correct?
True. Right.
Correct.
Yeah. So we hope to elevate Pittsburgh in the stack of tech companies, venture capital source companies, and we'll certainly fly the flag as this is our home, but we'll be investing nationally for sure.
Good. Yeah, and to kind of just add to that, when I first started Black Tech Pittsburgh, and I was very much so focused locally, once I saw all of the interests nationally, a lot of my mentors in here said, keep it focused, keep it on Pittsburgh. And I think I just had a different idea. I was like, no. Like, this needs to be national so the spotlight can be put on Pittsburgh. And then we can start to bring in more people and having a network of folks that the Native Black community here can also use to build them up. And I just felt like it could be a much larger connection point. And so we didn't stop that that idea with Black Tech Nation Ventures. It's the same thing. And so why not utilize the national network that we have now?
Let me shine up more sunshine at Kelauni. One of the most amazing things happened last week as Kelauni was coordinating our look-see at where we might be able to tap into marketing skills for Black Tech Nation. And
I
so
was like, what are you gonna say? I didn't know
so,
what you were gonna say.
so last week, Kelauni set up a call for us that was amazing. The skill set, the background, the experience in digital marketing and marketing for our fund. And that call was to a resource in, hold on to your hats, Rwanda. And it looks like there's some real traction, a real possibility. So when you begin to think about what could be true 12 months from now, when you think about Black Tech Nation Ventures and the possibility of connecting not only our fund, but Pittsburgh to really kind of the international landscape of talent and resource, this could be a really big story.
Well, actually, and you think about Carnegie Mellon's presence in Rwanda, so the ties there are just pretty natural. And I've been so impressed with the students that have come out of Rwanda and the work that they've done. I've been to a couple of those graduations and just, blown away. So that's just perfect for us. So I was going to ask a question about the types of companies that you invest in. Courtney is a little bit ahead of me. She's saying, are you industry field agnostic? My question was, stage, business model, geography, exit, et cetera. Can you talk about that? Like what the profile might be? I mean, I realize that you're not going to stick, within all those guardrails, but at least give us some understanding of your target.
Happy to do that.
Okay.
So with respect to stage, we absolutely want to play early. And we want to play at that seed, pre-series A. There's a lot of labels that people put on that now, but perhaps the umbrella that falls under is early. We absolutely want to be first dollars in, if not close to first dollars in. In terms of the size of the checks that we're going to write, they're in that $250,000 to $1 million first checks, and then the ability to protect our position as the company matures and earns the right to continue to play. With respect to industry and sector, we're absolutely going to be looking at what we might call more broadly tech-enabled companies, specifically software related, and companies that have either SaaS, enterprise systems, B2B, B2B2C, and then there's an interesting placeholder out there for companies that are creating new marketplaces that still fall into the tech-enabled space, and those are going to be very, very interesting for us as well. And then we've already talked about geographically that we will absolutely be looking at the hometown for opportunities, but the net that we're going to cast will be at least national, if not potentially international.
Yeah, I'd expand on that. Just to be clear, we're looking for top tier venture quality companies and top tier venture quality returns. We hope to be in the upper echelon on both of those. We're looking for multi-$100 million exit opportunities and companies that are really denting the universe.
And so that can be across, I mean, we have a varied community here, but that could be across almost every market sector and any kind of technology. Do you have like a propensity in any area? Or, like, will you be in life sciences? Will you be in, medical device?
That's a really good point, Audrey. And one of the things that will be a focus for us is we want to be in capital efficient, I'll call them short tail opportunities. So typically talk about life sciences. You're talking about capital intensive long tail opportunities where you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars to get across the finish line.
Right.
Looking at something that's probably better measured in 5 to 7 to 10 years to achieve an exit. We're looking at business models that potentially get from startup to exit in less than $40 million in total capital, and potentially have timelines that are measured in the, call them 1836 to potentially 48 months.
Wow.
But not the 3 yards in a cloud of dust, if you will, opportunities. And then building on what Sean said, there's going to be a lot of great entrepreneurial opportunities that are going to cap out at $5-10 million in revenue. Those businesses are going to generate great wealth and lifestyle for their founders, but those aren't going to map into the kind of things that Black Tech Nation Ventures is going to invest in. Scale and scalability will be critical. So looking at things that have the ability to drive $100+ million top line revenue, requisite bottom line performance. Last point, and I'll turn over the mic, is to say things that fall into that pure entrepreneurial space, but don't fall into attracting the institutional dollars, can still have a home room with us. That they would be on the Black Tech Nation side, so the community side of our collective, not on the ventures.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about that, Kelauni. Can you
Yeah.
talk about that differentiation?
Yeah, so they are completely separate entities. I mean, we make that very clear. I have to personally make that clear. The only thing that's tying the two is me. However, it is an umbrella, right? Like it is an ecosystem, which is what I had set out to do from the very beginning. And I think the great part and kind of what David alluded to is, again, we have like this pipeline issue from exposure to tech all the way through funding. And so when we have, as we grow our Black Tech Nation, the community and all of our programs and partnerships to mitigate some of those gaps, to have this like funding part where, say an entrepreneur isn't quite ready to be funded by BTNV, like you're just not quite there yet. Instead of what traditionally happens with our community and traditionally happens with Black-led and minority-led startups, they get the no, don't understand why. It's hard because of history and trauma and things like that, not to think, well, is it because I'm this? Is it because I'm Black? Is it because I'm a woman? Like, you just never know. Here, at least Black entrepreneurs and and leaders of color can know that that's not the reason. Like at the end of the day, like that is something that can be a concern taken off of you. And that in of itself is like beyond value. And
Right.
to have, to know that that's not the reason, and for us to kind of say, okay, well, you're missing A, B, C, and D, go across the street to Black Tech Nation, right? You have a network of people. We are actually in talks of starting an accelerator and some other like really supportive programming that can help fill in the gaps for these entrepreneurs that might not be ready for us on this side. And that part I'm particularly, I think, is what sets us apart, but I'm particularly personally grateful about is that we don't just say no and like send them on their way wondering what happened.
Which is what we hear, we hear.
Exactly.
We hear that all the time. No, but we'd like to mentor you. But that's not exactly what we're talking about here. So do you plan on, okay, I think there's some questions here. Why don't we jump to a couple of questions? What about Mark Freeman's question, Jonathan? Can you get to that?
Yeah, exactly. So as Black Tech Nation Ventures continues to grow, would there be opportunities for collaborations with similarly minded arts organizations, thinking of like the August Wilson Center, Pittsburgh Playwrights Theater Company, et cetera, in terms of considering signature fundraisers to raise awareness funds and I guess fundraisers for your organization, being a win-win for the local Pittsburgh arts and nonprofits?
I can take a stab at that one, particularly because I love the August Wilson Center. I love the arts. I was a ballet dancer for 17 years, so totally my world. And I actually, last year, I was actually talking to August Wilson about how do we marry like art and tech, right? And unfortunately with COVID, I kind of, like we all kind of lost our minds a little last year. So it was a little too much, but definitely a conversation I'm hoping to continue. And that would probably lean more so on the Black Tech Nation community side, not with BTNV, as we're definitely trying to stay focused on tech companies and high growth tech companies at that. And so, yeah, on the community side, I'm always thinking of how do we pair in all of the areas and industries of interest for our community, which arts is a huge part of the Black community. So for sure, definitely email contact@blacktechnation.com.
Audrey, one of the coolest things the Tech Council ever did going back a few years is your art and tech intersect. It was genius. It was brilliant. And I think we three, August Wilson, and the PTC, need to have a conversation down the road.
So I appreciate everyone. For the record, Sean Sebastian just called me brilliant, and this is being recorded. So
full disclosure, I've known Audrey as long as she's been at the council. I was on the search committee that brought her to the council.
Wow.
She can thank me, you can blame me, take your pick.
That's awesome.
No, you've been a good champion. I cannot complain one bit, but would love to circle back on that. That's near and dear to my heart. So if there are ways for us to do that besides just being on boards, but really creating that kind of collaboration. We have the assets here. Carnegie Mellon on the art side, Point Park, you can go through it. So you can count me in on that one, Sean, okay? So what about people who want to invest? Can we talk about that? Are we allowed to talk about that now?
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
Who
tell
people
us.
who want to invest in the fund?
Uh-huh.
Know what you mean? Absolutely, yeah. So the rules and all that have changed dramatically in the last few years. There were lots of real tight strictures on presentation and so forth. We have a website up, btn.vc, and there's a be a friend of the fund click through. And if anybody wants to hear the story in further detail, we'd be delighted to talk to them. To David's point, we're seeking as diverse an investor base as we are a diverse portfolio. So we'd welcome the conversations.
So anything about Birchmere? What's going on with your former hat at Birchmere?
Yeah, so I'm still wearing the hat. Birchmere still does what it does. We are at the tail end of our fifth fund. It's fully committed, invested. So serendipitously, we're in a window between funds of not making new investments. So that gives me a little bit of license to come out and do something new and fresh. And I have some excess capacity. And we also have the opportunity to lend the Birchmere back office to this fund. There's this first-time fund risk profile that a lot of institutional
Right.
like, oh, you know, we don't know if this is going to work. You're going to have to build everything from scratch. That's not true in this instance. So I think we have a lot of behind the scenes resources that can get BTNV off to a fast start. But Birchmere's going to keep doing what it does in the normal
Okay.
course of affairs.
Okay, that's great. So I want to go back to Kelauni. There's one piece that I think is really important for people to know about your background. You just skimmed it, but you worked with Academy Pittsburgh. Can you just talk about that experience? I think that's really important.
It's so important, and just special shout out to Josh and that whole family over there at Work Hard Pittsburgh, Josh Lucas. So I actually, just a quick background, I lived in North Dakota. We can do a whole nother event about that in and of itself, but I lived in North Dakota prior to moving to Pittsburgh. And I remember I was living with my sister. I was like kind of in between careers at the time, just really didn't know where I wanted to really be.
Sure.
And my sister's mentor, who was head of global marketing at Microsoft at the time, she know him forever. He said, if your sister's in between things right now, tell her they need Black women in tech. Like, she should get into tech. And so I'm like, ew, that does not sound fun at all. And that was my honest reaction. And, just because I hadn't been exposed to it, I didn't know much about it. And I looked up boot camps, ended up finding some little boot camp in Pittsburgh. I was like, Pittsburgh, okay. So I call, and Josh answered, who I didn't know at the time would be an amazing person in my life. But he said, yeah, if you can get here, come on down, we'll have a spot for you. I said, so I'll just have to move to Pittsburgh in 2 weeks. And he's like, yeah, if you can get here. So I packed my bags and I moved to Pittsburgh in 2 weeks, found a distant cousin that I stayed on their couch for a bit, and just went to Academy Pittsburgh to learn to code for 3 months, and literally got a 6-figure job in my very first job right out of that boot camp. And it changed my life, like, obviously, right? Like, here we are today. But I just so applaud what Josh and Academy Pittsburgh brought and built in the city as far as boot camps, and would highly recommend anyone who wants to learn the code. Like, I send all of our people there if they want to learn the code in Pittsburgh.
So it looks like, Kelauni, Lauren might have jumped in a little late. I know we covered some of this, but can you read her question? She's saying, can you talk more about the benefits of having a like Black Tech Nation, even though we covered some of it? And what are some of the common questions that you hear? I think we covered most of that, but if you want to just reiterate that for Lauren.
Sure, Lauren, thank you for the question. I think, as we indicated, having this existing Black Tech Nation, we call it our hashtag digital Wakanda. That's what all of our members call it. But our digital Wakanda, having that as a community space, and which is digital, but like people from all over, and then tying it in with the funding arm, like Black Tech Ventures, again, that connect of having direct funding opportunity for entrepreneurs, which your second question was about, like, what are the biggest concerns that I often hear? And it is around capital, especially for the entrepreneurs, and just around access, and how do I get a tech job, and how do I stay, like, how do I move up in tech, and what do I need to learn? There's a lot of questions, simply because the Black community, unfortunately, historically has not been educated in the tech space at all, really. And so, yeah, having this community, I think the benefit is multiple, like there's so many benefits to having a space and programs and opportunities and education and people who look like you and just camaraderie. We have happy hours, we drink a little and, and just talk about tech stuff. So yeah, I think that's what, it's just a big family. It's a big family.
And it matters to have that kind of collaboration and,
Yes.
and collegial. You moved to Pittsburgh and so now you're here. What do you think?
So it will be 5 years next month. What do I think about Pittsburgh in 5 years? Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, when I first got to Pittsburgh, the only thing I knew about it was the Steelers. That's all I knew, and I don't even really follow football, so I didn't know much. My very first thought when I landed here was, it is so beautiful here. I had no idea the nature,
Oh, wow.
the rivers. Like, I was like, people don't know how pretty Pittsburgh is. I was so shocked. And once I told my family I was actually going to stay because I saw the opportunity, especially in tech, I saw the opportunity to fill in the gap of Black tech in the city specifically. They were like, why would you stay in Pittsburgh? Like, what's there? And I was like, honestly, there's a great, well-intentioned community here. Like, I've gotten to know a lot of leaders here in the city, everyone from city council members to Carnegie Mellon people and all of these people, Audrey, yourself included, like, who really want to do the work. Is just figuring out how to do it. And I saw that potential here. And I'm like, you know what? I'm staying. We're going to figure this out and I'll help do whatever I can. Cause I just think Pittsburgh has the perfect like mix of everything to make it a great city. It's just, we're just like right there. Like,
Right there.
and I want to help to push it
little
over.
I think it's a little bit wider than right there.
Yeah, no, I mean like right there in the sense of like, we're just like right there to be considered a city and like a national example of what well-intentioned conversations can actually lead to. That's the part I'm waiting for. Is like, let's actually like push this stuff. And I think we can get there.
Well, I would like us to get as a city and as a region to have the positive stories about what it's like for a person of color to be here and not the inverse stories, right? And I would like to, because there are people like all of you that deeply care and are trying to move the needle, and a lot of people that are on this call as well. I do want to give like a shout out to Josh Lucas, not because he really was an early adopter and passionate about driving this boot camp that they have at Academy PGH and embedding himself into the Allentown community when everyone else was moving into the East End, and said, we can't leave people behind. And he has lived those words. We actually are starting an apprentice program at the Tech Council, which will include a good partnership with Academy Pittsburgh. So we're pretty excited about that. So listen, we could talk to you folks for quite a while, and I want to be sensitive to everyone's time, but is there anything, David, that you wish that I would have asked or that we would have talked about that maybe I failed to do? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. I think the one thing that we haven't touched on that I believe is unique about the space in which Black Tech Nation Ventures operates is the fact that capital coming into Black and diverse founding teams has been something that's been pursued for a while, but I think with the advent of what happened in 2020, there's just a lot of attention and energy and resource flowing into the space. And the nature of the opportunity is one that I believe is best described as one of collaboration. Perhaps in contrast to the venture fund world in general, where sometimes there is the reputation of it being a highly competitive marketplace with respect to both sourcing capital and sourcing deals. What we have found in our first 4 months of advancing Black Tech Nation Ventures is that with respect to both sourcing capital and sourcing deals, and I believe we're going to find in lots of other ways, the opportunity is not one to compete with other players in the space, but rather one to collaborate and try and find a way to make 2 + 2 = 6. So I think that's a big part of the message that I would want to make sure that we convey to the Pittsburgh marketplace.
That's great. Good. Thank you. What about anyone else? Can anyone reach out to you? 3? Are there ways if they go onto LinkedIn, can they reach out to you?
Yeah,
Sure.
I would say
Okay.
LinkedIn and the website has all of our emails on there, and there's a form to just go and send all of us a message.
Oh,
So it's
okay. Excellent.
btn.bc.
A word of caution, we are drowning in this at the moment.
Okay.
The
Okay.
early reaction to the proposition has just been overwhelming.
Okay.
So be patient. We'll happily engage with everybody possible, but it may take a little bit of time to get personal.
Okay, that's great. So is there anything else that you think you want to give a shout out about? I mean, other than you should be proud, excited, we are. You're shining the light on Pittsburgh for sure. So we're all grateful for that. And the amount of contagion that's already taken place has been, phenomenal. So again, you're shining the light on Pittsburgh. Is there anything else that you want to make sure people know?
Black women make 10% the wealth of white men.
Mhm.
And it really takes intentionality in this space. Like for those who are listening, who could be potential LPs, who want to invest in something that is not only just a potential moneymaker, obviously, like we're not a charity fund, it's a real fund.
Okay.
We want to see financial gains. However, to do that work of like closing that gap, that 10% to 100, to that 10% gap is just like, and for the Black community as a whole, minorities as a whole, like generational wealth building is so important.
Mhm.
Closing that wealth gap is so important. And so that's literally, if you're trying to make a difference while also seeing returns, like this,
Right.
I don't think anyone else is really positioned the way we are in this space to do so.
Great. Excellent. Well, we just did a little bit of a deep dive with 3 people who are changing the course of our exposure and making sure that minorities and people of color and, gender differences are all have a seat at the table in building, building wealth. And building wealth creates equity.
Yep.
And that's the real deal. Dollars matter. And so I applaud all of you. Thank you, Kelauni. Thank you, Sean, for being a mentor to Kelauni and being behind the scenes on this. And thank you, David, for continuing to make sure that Pittsburgh really is a place, because this is the time. The time is now.
Yep.
So thank you all for being with us today. Expect that your inbox will increase. I'm sorry, but it will.
Good
And
problem.
we really look forward to hearing more from you. So thank you all so much. Jonathan, who do we have tomorrow?
Tomorrow's going to be very exciting, Audrey. We're welcoming the Center for Women's Entrepreneurship at Chatham University.
Okay.
So it's going to be a great follow-up to this.
Well, totally. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Kelauni,
Thank you.
David.
Thanks, Council.
Everyone.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.